Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today, I want to discuss my top 15 anime of the decade. And before we get started, a couple of the anime that will be on this list are on the video that I made a few months ago for my top 10 anime of all time. So, of course, if you want to hear a little more in depth about those specific series, then check out that video. And so today I'm just going to go through my top 15 anime and give brief reasons why I think you should check them out if you haven't already and why I like them so much. So comment down below in the video if any of these series interest you and you want to hear me talk more in depth about any particular part of these series. So before we get started, also some honorable mentions. First would be Tokyo Ghoul, which for anime adaptations does not make the list, but if this was a manga list, it would definitely be on it, so I have to shout it out, of course. And then a couple shows that I am in the process of watching and haven't made it through is I haven't seen all of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, so I didn't feel confident enough to put it on the list. Steins Gate is another show I'm planning on watching. Mob Psycho 100, I have just barely started. And then Haikyuu. Those are four shows that, from everything I know about them, potentially could have made this list, but I haven't seen them yet. So let's get started right now with number 15, and that is One Punch Man. The reason I think this show is so worthwhile is especially the animation in the first season. I mean, this has been a phenomenon of a show, and I don't like it as much as some other people do. That's why it's 15 on my list, but I definitely think it's worth checking out. The animation is stellar, and especially if you're into superheroes or just a big fan of shonen anime in general, Saitama is a really funny protagonist, and the play on being so strong, of course, is the big selling point for this show. And the first season animation is mind-blowing. It is so good. So even if you don't continue on to season 2, which to me felt a little bit lesser quality, I highly recommend season 1. Hopefully you enjoy it. 14 would be My Hero Academia, the new juggernaut of shonen. I've talked about this show a couple times on this channel. I think it does some really interesting things for the superhero genre, which I'm pretty invested in. And of course, there are a few things that I think the series can improve on in the future, but that's something I'm so willing to watch for going forward. My favorite character in that show is by far Bakugo, and honestly, him is worthwhile to watch the show because he is so incredible. So My Hero at number 14. Number 13, we have the first entry from the 2019 anime, which there are a couple of. Might be some recency bias for these shows making the list, but it is Dr. Stone. The biggest selling point is the world. The plot of the show is so interesting. The Stone Age and having to rebuild civilization kind of from a shonen standpoint. And taking away some of those big battles that we see in these other shows and making those scientific discoveries is a really unique way for a show. Senku, the main character, is incredibly endearing and super interesting. The show is pretty unique. It has an interesting tone. I really connected with it, and I really think it's worth the watch if you haven't, because it just got renewed for a season 2, which is awesome. So go check out Dr. Stone. Number 12 is the first and only sports anime on the list, and that is Kuroko no Basket. For me, as you can see with this shirt, I'm a huge basketball fan, and so watching Kuroko, and really it captures the idea of competition super well within the show. That's one of the main reasons to watch it. Even if you're not a big basketball fan, I think it does a great job of dramatizing basketball and making the competition feel like heartbreaking and heart pounding at the same time. It is super good. So I highly recommend Kuroko no Basket, and I think it has great characters, and all of the basketball games are just super well done. It's super enjoyable. Number 11 is another 2019 entry on the list, and that is Demon Slayer. For me right now, Demon Slayer, I put it over My Hero, I put it over One Punch Man. I know it might be recency biased, but the animation of this show is breathtaking. It is unbelievably good for the entirety of its 26 episode run. And of course, the main character, from a shonen standpoint, like Midoriya in My Hero, he can be a little bland. It feels like we've seen him before. But if you like the shonen format at all, go watch Demon Slayer. It is an incredible show. I cannot recommend it highly enough. All of the fight scenes are so great. They're so well done. The characters are incredibly endearing and empathetic. And from a very quick standpoint, from 2, 3, 4 episodes into the show, I was hooked and I was invested in these characters. I can't wait to see where this series goes in the future, because I honestly think the sky's the limit. And this show, if we get the whole thing, could be even higher up on this list. Now we're into the top 10, and at number 10, we have Aggretsuko. The one thing I love about this show, and where I think the value is to be had, is in how it portrays just real life emotions so clearly. You know, it is just the story of an office worker, and I can almost guarantee that everyone has gone through a similar experience in Aggretsuko, and it captures the feeling of going into adulthood, going out into the world, and things not quite being the way that you thought it would, similar dreams, aspirations, for so many of us. I absolutely adore it, both season 1 and season 2, so I think you should absolutely see Aggretsuko if you haven't. And now we're on to number 9, which is Madoka Magica. And this show is pretty quick. I think it's 12 or 13 episodes, and I watched it not too long ago, even though it's been out for a long time. The animation at times, it feels like you're watching a movie and not just a series. The characters are very interesting, but the main reason to watch this show is the themes and the plot. The plot goes in really unique ways that you wouldn't be expecting, and it really tackles on these themes of what is a wish worth? You know, if you could make one wish, is that actually worth, going through all of this trauma? So the whole series is incredible. It's really quick watch. So I recommend Madoka Magica, and the real reason to watch is for its deep and thought-provoking themes. Number 8 is the last series from 2019, but by far my favorite series, and that is Vinland Saga. The story of Thorfinn and his revenge tale is absolutely incredible. The art design and direction of the show is awesome. The soundtrack, especially the first opening, is awesome. I know it is on Amazon, and so if you are able to get Amazon Prime and watch it, I think it's well worth it. The series, from everything I've heard about the manga, I've not read the manga, is going in really interesting directions. All of the characters have interesting motives. They're all very well fleshed out. And of course, Thorfinn, the main character, even though it seems like a classic revenge tale, it is just so well done that I absolutely think it is an anime that you should check out. And at number 7, ironically, we have Seven Deadly Sins. This is a show I'm actually working on a larger video for called Why I Fell in Love with Seven Deadly Sins. And the main catch here, the main reason to watch this show is for the 7 main characters, each of those sins. These characters are super well fleshed out, and they have a really unique perspective, not only on sinning in general, how these characters aren't embodiments of sins, but they just fell to one of these acts that makes their backstory what it is. And all of these characters have kind of gone through an arc. They have what might be the coming of age story, the typical plot that we would normally see, but it's after that, and after they're all together and they all have to work through that. And those characters make you fall in love with the show so fast. Those 7 characters are the reason to watch the show. So I think putting Seven Deadly Sins at number 7 was pretty fitting. Number 6 is Fate Zero. Fate Zero is another show that has incredible animation. It's done by the same studio that made Demon Slayer, and what makes this show so incredible is the really intricate plot and the chess game that is played for all the characters. Every character and action scene is extremely well done. It's a great introduction to the Fate series, and I think probably by far my favorite. series from the Fate franchise. It is absolutely incredible, but the main draw here is not only the action scenes and characters, but the plot and how each character interacts with each other. Interesting decisions are constantly made in this Holy Grail war, and that's really what carries the series through, and it is one of my favorite anime and an absolute great story. And now we are into the top 5, the best anime of the decade. And number 5 is maybe a lesser known title, and it is Death Parade. There's only one issue I have with this show, and it's just because it's not long enough. I wish there was more. But the reason to watch it, it's a bunch of different episodes that are a little episodic, and it really explores the morality of humanity in a really interesting way. Each episode are 2 different people going through different games in the afterlife when they don't know that they are dead yet. And so everyone makes these interesting decisions when they realize that they might be able to live through this game. The show really explores the morality of humanity and what makes someone moral versus what makes someone amoral. And I think that is the number one reason to watch this show, and I just wish it was a little bit longer. Number 4 is Made in Abyss, and I am absolutely in love with this show. It's only 13 episodes, but the main reason why I love it so much is the atmosphere, the world that's created, and it's developed not only through its animation, but through the sound design and the performances. It is such an interesting and captivating world. It almost feels like I'm going through a video game, and that's not even to talk about the plot of the series, of them descending through the abyss that is gripping and almost dreadful at times because of how dark it can get. This is a dark show, but I think it's well worth it, and I don't think any show has captured an atmosphere and a feeling of a place quite like Made in Abyss has, and that is the main selling point for that show. Number 3 is The Devil is a Part-Timer, and this is the main comedy I have on here, and it's one of the shows that, you know, the first time you watch it through, the plot can kind of take you in different ways because it really deconstructs the typical battle show, and making it into a comedy of Satan, of course, working at McRonald's or McDonald's. But this is a show that I come back to all the time. I rewatch multiple episodes. It almost feels like a sitcom. The humor is spot on, and it really kind of takes the humor of the absurdity of a situation, right? Like Satan is just living a day-to-day life, and the humor that comes from that is super clever and engaging and well worth watching. Now we're into the final 2, and these 2 are super close, but at number 2 I have Attack on Titan, and when I first watched this show with all of the hype, I was still captivated and in love with it, and I never knew, or I never thought it was going to ever hit the heights it would, especially in season 3 part 2 that came out in 2019. The show is constantly surprising. It has amazing characters, thought-provoking themes. It really captures everything. It's one of my favorite stories I have ever had the pleasure of watching, and I can't recommend it highly enough, but probably if you're seeing this video, you've already seen or heard of Attack on Titan, but it's well worth the watch, and I've talked about it a little bit on this channel, but I definitely want to talk about it even more, especially with the things that are going on in the manga, and I can't wait to see those animated next year, so Attack on Titan is a must-watch. And now we're finally at number 1 with Hunter x Hunter 2011. This is one of my favorite shows ever. The production is amazing. The characters are amazing. The themes are engaging, thought-provoking. It has everything that I am looking for in a show. You've probably heard of it already. I hope that the manga will eventually continue, and maybe one day we'll get another half to this great story, but it's 148 episodes. Specifically, the Yorknu arc and the Chimera Ant arc are some of my favorites, and they are some of the best individual arcs I think I've ever seen in any show, and really the main reason to watch it is to kind of grow with, over months while you kind of take on this large show with Gon and Killua, 2 of the main characters. and Hunter x Hunter following through their journey to becoming what they do. It is so much fun. It's one of the reasons why long running shonen are so great. And of course, Hunter x Hunter, in my opinion, handles everything about a long running shonen perfectly. And at times it captures the feeling of chaos and the ripple effects that one person can have on a group of people. It does everything so well. I cannot recommend that highly enough. And these are my top 15 anime of the decade. I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, let me know if you want me to discuss any of these shows further. Yeah, I just wanted to give some brief thoughts on why I like the shows, some overarching ideas on why these shows are awesome for me. And I hope that if you liked this video, that you'll let me know if you want me to talk about any of these shows further. And I hope to see you guys in the next video.